Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to have a look at another beer from a brewery who you've seen me review a good number of things from before. Quite a few under the brewery's old name, and this will be beer number 3 under the brewery's new name. So for this one then, we are heading up towards Stockholm. We're going to go to the southwest of the city for this one, to a little place called Ekerö, which of course means we are going to revisit Northern Exposure Brewing Company. So the beer we're having a look at today is the Exothermic, which is a Kveik IPA coming in at 6% ABV, and this one was released on the 1st of May 2020 through the Lokalt och Småskaligt assortment that is released every month in Sweden these days through Systembolaget. Basically the Swedish breweries have a lot easier access to the market now than they used to, which I have to say is a great move by Systembolaget or the government, whoever actually organised that. But yeah, this one, like I said, is a Kveik IPA. For those of you who don't know, the Kveiks are a type of yeast that you get from Norway. It comes from Voss in Norway, an old Norwegian farmhouse yeast, and they can usually give you some very nice kind of big doughy bready notes. You get a little bit of woodiness and sometimes a bit of peppery spiciness and things like that out of them, but they can also give you some really interesting fruits and stuff like that as well. So if you haven't tried a Kveik IPA already, I really recommend that you do, because they are very, very interesting actually. But this one I think will be a very interesting beer. The last beer that I had from Northern Exposure Brewing Company was the Dolphin Love, which is one of their flagship IPAs, along with the Crossing... is it the Crossing Borders or Crossing Barriers? I forget the exact name of it, but that was one of their flagship IPAs, and I have to say it was very, very nice actually. I was very impressed with that beer, so I need to review the other IPA that they do at some point fairly soon as well. But yeah, hopefully this one turns out to be another interesting beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well. And as I say, I do recommend that you have a look at this brewery if you are interested in Swedish beer, and if you haven't tried a Kveik IPA already, I do suggest that you look into those as well, because they are pretty damn interesting, I have to say. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Northern Exposure Brewing Company before, and a link to my ones from Nordic Kiwi Brewers, which was the brewery's previous name. No doubt you will see some more beers added to the Northern Exposure list very soon. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Northern Exposure Brewing Company then. So this brewery, as I've mentioned to you already, was founded as Nordic Kiwi Brewers, and they're based in Ekerö to the west of Stockholm, and it was founded by two New Zealanders, Craig Donovan and Karen Beattie, back in 2014, hence the original name Nordic Kiwi Brewers. So apparently they began home brewing because Swedish beer was so expensive, and that statement really surprises me because I've been to New Zealand back in 2015, and the beer there I think is quite a bit more expensive than it is in Sweden. Do let me know your own thoughts on that in the comments section below, but that at least was my opinion. But soon they began buying hops from Nelson in New Zealand to use in their home brewing, but they set up a commercial brewery in a room using equipment they found mainly on Blocket, which is basically the Swedish equivalent of Craigslist. You can find, you know, virtually anything you imagine on Blocket. It really is a little bit of a treasure trove. But Karen apparently met his Swedish lady in New Zealand, and then the pair moved to London together, and he spent some time working in the construction industry before they moved together back to Sweden. So Karen worked full-time in the brewery initially, while Craig was part-time, and he worked for Ericsson, you know, the big telecommunications company. But the niche of this brewery originally was that they were brewing all their beers with New Zealand hops, and since 2017 both of them have been working full-time with the brewery. In late 2018 though, they moved to a larger brewery in Ekerö, and that year they brewed around 100,000 litres of beer per year, and they were hoping to double that across 2019. I'm not sure if they did manage that, but I'm guessing with the change of branding and all of this that they may well have done so. But they also hired a new Kiwi brewer to join them, and they were planning to install a new brewing system in the brewery as well. So I think that might have just happened as of May 2020, but I need to look at that and see if they have actually updated the brewing system. I guess they probably have, since they've done all the rebranding and things like that. But at the end of 2019 they also changed the brewery's name from Northern Nordic Kiwi Brewers to Northern Exposure Brewing Company. But I think in terms of the legal structures, I think the original company name is still Nordic Kiwi Brewers, but the beer is sold under the brand Northern Exposure Brewing Company. And they're now using hops from all over the world and not simply New Zealand. But as of May 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, they've released around 10 different beers under the Northern Exposure name. And as I've said in previous videos, I'm still not sure how I feel about the change of name from Nordic Kiwi Brewers to Northern Exposure Brewing Company. I mean, they said that the main reason for it was that Swedes didn't get that the kiwi was a symbol of New Zealand. They always took it as the kiwi in the fruit, so they thought all the beers that they were producing had kiwis and things in them. So yeah, no, that's one of the things. As I say, the Nordic Kiwi Brewer symbol was just NKB, whereas they could have had a little kiwi bird in it or something like that. So yeah, I think the new branding, I do think the new branding, the actual design of the cans and things is nicer, and the Northern Exposure name I think is good. As I say, for me, I don't know, the whole thing with the New Zealand hops, I've got a little bit of a love affair with New Zealand hops and things like that, because, you know, I had such a good time in New Zealand back in 2015, discovering all those different things like Rakau, Waiti, you know, Maltere, Malteke, all of these kind of things. There's a ridiculous number of New Zealand hops actually, but yeah, these guys do good beers, and that is the main thing. As I say, the Dolphin Love is a beautiful IPA, I have to admit. That's probably one of the best ones I've had. The last kind of 3 or 4 beers that I had, the Chaos and Clive IPA, and also the what was it, the Tutti Frutti double IPA, those were very, very nice actually. So yeah, the later beers that I was getting from Nordic Kiwi Brewers I think were on a higher level than the ones that I was having originally, but the new Northern Exposure ones seem to be on a very, very good level actually. So yeah, these guys have got very exciting times ahead I think, and I will need to keep an eye on them and see what they're doing. But yeah, that's all I really need to tell you about Northern Exposure Brewing Company for the moment. As I say, a brewery that I really like keeping an eye on because of the New Zealand element that they have and the New Zealand hops and stuff. So yeah, definitely a Swedish brewery that you want to check out if you haven't heard of them already. So yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer then. If you want to know more about the brewery, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. I'll just like to have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. There you can see an almost kind of lava-like pattern on the Exothermic kind of thing. I do wonder what the inspiration behind the name is. I don't know if Kveik used to use a slightly higher fermenting temperature or something, or if they give out heat during the brew. Maybe that's where maybe that's one of the things here. But as I said, this is a 6% Kveik IPA, basically a Norwegian farmhouse IPA. The hops in this one are Mandarina Bavaria from Germany. That's around 8% alpha acid if I remember rightly, and it gives you some lovely orangey notes as well as the typical German noble hop qualities. Wonder if that's the bittering hop in this one. But then you've got Nelson Sauvin and Simcoe. Nelson Sauvin of course gives you those very distinctive white green grapey notes, and that hop, if I remember rightly, can go all the way from like 13 to 16% alpha acid. And then we've got the Simcoe in there as well, which I think is normally between 11 and 12% alpha acid. That's an American hop, and it can usually give you some lovely, very smooth passion fruity notes actually. I do love a little bit of Simcoe. But yeah, nicely presented can, this one, 6% IPA. So without further ado, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. I think I paid like 45 or 50 kroners for this beer. So that, if you translate that, that is around £4 British and about €5. I'm not sure what that will translate into in dollars and things like that, you know, probably about $6 for a can. $6 US dollars, Australian dollars, what would that be, about $9 or $10 for the can, maybe? I can't remember what the exchange rate for the Aussie dollar is. I think the Canadian one is probably about 10 Canadian dollars for a can as well. I'm not sure how that compares to your own domestic beers and things like that, but yeah, that's the kind of price that you're looking at for one of these. But yeah, as you can see with this one, and as you kind of expect, it's poured a lovely, quite bright yellowy colour, this one. It's almost a mango juice colour, to be honest with you. You can see there was about a quarter finger of a frothy, creamy white head on this one, but that's just faded away to basically be nothing. There's just a little island of fluff there in the middle of the in the middle of the beer actually, but it looks very nice. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is a good degree of haze to this one. It's definitely not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs that you're going to come across. It actually doesn't look too different from the Dolphin Love that I reviewed for you a few videos back. If I shine the light through this one, it definitely sticks to more of that, you know, it definitely sticks to that sort of mangoey juice type colour there. But yeah, nothing overly surprising about this beer when you consider what style it is. The appearance is pretty much what you would expect. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we got on with this one. And yeah, straight away with this one, you get those lovely doughy yeasty notes out of it, the kind of Kveik yeast. It's got that sort of woody undertone to it. It's got the kind of, it's almost like wet bread dough. Actually, it really smells kind of like that. There's a wee touch of a kind of slightly spicy note to this one. I don't know whether you could describe it as peppery or something like that. But yeah, there is a wee bit of a kind of yeah, the aroma out of this one, if you know what Kveik yeast smells like, it's very, very distinctive. I mean, it smells almost a little bit woody, a little bit kind of herbal almost, a little bit kind of vegetal actually. But this one, I think, the Kveik yeast that you get out of this really smells very kind of woody and quite almost like dusty, if you want, like a dusty doughy type note actually. The Kveik yeast that they've got in here, I think, comes across very, very nicely in the aroma. You can smell a little bit of a kind of wheaty note to this one, definitely a bit of a white bready character to it. I think there's a wee touch of an oaty quality to this beer as well. So yeah, you can definitely pick out a little touch of an oaty creaminess. You get a big kind of smooth wheaty bready note in there, and then you've also got the big kind of presence from the sort of woody and doughy Kveik yeast actually, which I think is very, very nice. So the aroma of this, I think, comes across really nicely. There's maybe a wee touch of biscuit in there, which, you know, it can just come from the booziness of the beer. At 6% though, you're not going to get too much of that in the aroma. I think this one really leans towards the yeasty end of the spectrum. On the green side of the hops, there is a little touch of earthiness from this one. I think that's coming from the Mandarin of Bavaria. It's quite a bright earthiness, which is what you'd expect of German hops. I do suspect that what's going on here with this one is that Mandarin of Bavaria is the early edition hop, so you add the early edition hops once you get the thing up to the boil to put the bitterness into it, but also to it's quite common that you use a lower alpha acid hop or not quite as flavourful a hop in the early edition one to do it. Some, you know, for single hop IPAs that's not always the case, but hops like Columbus and things tend to be very popular bittering hops actually. I'll shut up, Adobe. Yeah, but yeah, the hoppy character to this one, I think, comes across really nicely. You get some lovely big floral aromatic notes out of this, which you will get from both the Nelson Sauvin and the Simcoe. When you add hops, usually an IPA has around a 90-minute boil, and usually with the bigger hops you'll add them after the hour has taken place. Actually, you'll usually add them after the 1 hour mark, which is usually very, very nice. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of the hoppy side of this beer. The green side of things really leans towards that big kind of floral aromatic sort of thing. It's not overly spicy, but there is a wee bit of a kind of grassiness to this one too. But for me, mainly quite floral. But when you've got Nelson Sauvin does have a good bit of a floral character to it. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, this one is quite interesting. So for me, there's actually quite a lot of a kind of apricot-y, peachy type aroma coming out of this one, which isn't really what I would have expected. You can get a little bit of the stronger kind of passion fruity notes rather from the Simcoe in this one, but there really is quite a bit of pineapple-y, mango-y, peachy sort of notes coming out of this beer. So the yeast, I think, is contributing quite a lot to the fruity side of this, because, you know, the sort of white green grapey notes that you'd expect of the Nelson Sauvin, you really get them in the front of the nose, but you have to just take a light whiff of the beer to really get those, in my opinion. I don't get too much in the way of the oranges that you'd normally expect from the Mandarin of Bavaria as well. You really have to kind of search for those. So I think it's the Simcoe that's given this one a lot of its fruitiness, and I think the yeast is also contributing to that as well. So like I said, a bit of a pineapple-y, peachy, almost apricot-y type note out of this one. Stronger passion fruit in there as well from the Simcoe. And it's quite a smooth passion fruit as well, because it's Simcoe Galaxy, of course. will give you a much more pungent passion fruit. You know, you've got Eldorado can give you passion fruit as well. Idaho 7 can give you it, but it gives you it with a lot of other kind of complexities and things. But yeah, you will get a bit of the light green grapey things from the Nelson Sauvin, and you'll also get a little bit of the kind of orangey character from the Mandarina as well. So quite an interesting combination of aromas, this one, but I do like how it goes together actually. The aroma of this beer is pretty damn nice. So take a bit of time and enjoy that for yourself before you get stuck into the beer. But we're going to have a taste of this now and just see how we get on. This one is the Exothermic, a Kveik IPA. It's 6% ABV from Northern Exposure Brewing Company in Ekerö, just out to the west of Stockholm. Let's get stuck into this one. Sláinte, skål. That's pretty nice, yeah. It's very drinkable again. Yeah, this one, I like this. I do like this. The question that will be coming up straight away, is this quite as good as the Dolphin Love? I don't think so. Is it going to be as good as the Crossing Borders? I think the Crossing Borders is actually rated a bit higher on Untappd than Dolphin Love is, so I suspect maybe not as well. But as a Kveik IPA, and as a first attempt at a Kveik IPA, because I don't think they've really used the Kveik yeast, I think this is a pretty solid attempt. So this is a good base for them to play with, I think. And it's not really missing anything, this beer, I don't think, in terms of that style. I really don't think it's missing anything. I think maybe, you know, I just prefer the Dolphin Love to this, and that's just how it goes sometimes when you try the brewery's beers. But this one, as a Kveik IPA, I think it is pretty solid. It's definitely a more kind of yeasty leaning beer, this, rather than anything else. But the fruity notes that come out of this, I think, are very, very interesting. So yeah, it's a good beer if you like a kind of more kind of thicker, yeasty leaning beer. Then this is one that is going to suit you to the ground, I think. But I think it is pretty well balanced, I have to say. So yeah, I like how this goes together. So yeah, this one, it does say on the back this has got barley malt, which is normal malt, then wheat malt and oats in it. It's interesting because I do think this one, I think it's the yeast and the wheat that come out most in this one. So if we're comparing this to some of the big American IPAs, it leans a little bit more towards that kind of bitey, wheaty sort of thing that you'd expect from the likes of Trillium, for example. I think they're quite a wheaty leaning brewery actually. So yeah, this one I think is a really interesting combination of things. So let's try and break this down then. Straight away with this beer, you can feel that nice kind of white bready, wheaty base that the beer has. That blankets the middle of the tongue. When you go towards the back third of the tongue, that's when you can feel the kind of thicker, doughy, yeasty notes pushing their way out of the beer. So for me, this one is quite, you know, it's really got quite a, it really has quite a big thickness to it in my mind. You do get a few of the woody undertones to this one, but I think it really leans more towards the kind of thick, doughy kind of thing. There is a wee touch of a kind of spicy note to this one, maybe a little bit of a kind of peppery quality. But yeah, I think this is, I think this really is pretty damn nice, I have to say. It's growing on me, I have to say, but I think my opinion about the Dolphin Love kind of stands. That's going to be a hard, but in fairness, that is going to be a hard beer for them to beat, I think. I think they've got a really solid first IPA there. But yeah, in terms of the Kveik IPA, this is definitely one of the kind of stronger ones that I've come across, and the way that the wheat and the Kveik interact in this is really interesting, because like I say, the back third of your tongue, you can definitely feel a kind of thick, wheaty bitiness out of this one. You can feel the more doughy elements of the yeast kind of sitting on top of that, and it almost has just a little bit of a kind of peppery spice to it. There is a wee bit of a kind of herbal thing going on there. The further you go into the aftertaste, in that back third of your tongue, you will get a little bit of a herbal quality there too, but you can feel the doughy thickness just creeping forward a little bit, but then it's almost like your back of your palate's like a cliff edge. It just kind of drops off, then the middle third of your tongue feels a little bit lighter. You can feel a little bit of that wheatiness kind of sitting in there as well. If you move towards the front part of that middle third of your tongue, there's a nice kind of oaty, there is a little touch of an oaty creaminess to this one, but I still find that the middle part of the palate really leans towards the kind of wheaty side of things. In the very centre of your palate there is a wee touch of a kind of biscuity thing there, but I think the wheat really dominates that, and you can feel some of these yeasty elements there as well. The teeny biscuity notes that I was picking up out of this one are very, very minimal actually. So it's an interesting one. This, as I say, quite thick and doughy at the back of in the back third of the tongue, but then it's a little bit lighter in the middle third of the palate too, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, you might get a little bit of sweetness in the middle of your palate just when you have the liquid on your tongue actually, which is quite interesting. So yeah, at the back and onto the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of your palate you definitely get a little touch of earthiness there, and the earthiness is just, I think there's more, I think the yeastiness is almost contributing to some of the earthiness that you get out of this beer, because it does feel a little bit darker than that typical German noble earthiness that you'll get. But yeah, you can pick up some of the lighter, brighter earthiness, but as you come further forward along the sides of the palate you do have a nice little bit of a kind of big floral aromaticity that comes out of this one. And it's not just a German floral quality in this, the American side of things is definitely coming out in this one. I would be curious to know when they've added the hops in this, as I say, because there might be another bittering hop in this one. There might be a bit of Columbus in here as the bittering hop, and then the other ones have been added a little bit later on. That could be the other option here. They might just not be saying that there is a fourth hop in here that's used as a bittering hop. Not quite sure about that. I wouldn't be surprised if, going from some of the flavours in this, there is a wee bit of Columbus in here as the bittering sort of thing, because that floral quality that comes out of this is quite dark and quite distinctive actually. So yeah, it does get a little bit spicier as you come forward towards the front curve of the tongue. Then as you go round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, but you can feel some of the kind of floral qualities sitting under that as well. But I like how this one goes together. It really is very nice. But yeah, this is it's definitely growing on me, this one. This the more and more that my palate kind of gets used to this beer, the more it does grow on me. And the Kveik IPAs, to be honest, it's not a style that I would drink all that often, to be honest with you. I don't really drink outside of the beer reviews either. That's the other thing. So for me, you know, it just depends on what kind of beer I'm in the mood for. And the Kveik IPAs, I'm curious about them, so you know, I will try them. I will, if there is one available in the Lokaltus Moskva League, I will tend to buy it, and that's why I got this one, because I think it can be really nice if it's done properly. And like I say, this one is growing and growing and growing on me. But yeah, I like what this one has in store. But round the front curve of the palate, like I say, you've got some nicer. You do have some nice light grassy aromas to this one, or flavours rather, not aromas. But behind the front curve of the palate, of course, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters push their way out of the beer, and the front third of the tongue is quite interesting there. So if you go towards the back of that there, you do get quite a strong passion fruit. I think the Simcoe in this one really is kind of leaning towards that dark end of the spectrum, and that's interesting because I've never really seen Simcoe behave like that. I've always considered Simcoe to be quite a very light, juicy, passion fruity character, but to me it's really very strong in this one. So you've got a good bit of that darker tropical fruit here, and it could just be the interaction with the yeast. Certain hops can do very interesting things with different yeast. You know, if you watched my green gold reviews recently, the way the cashmere behaves with some of those Vermont yeasts that they have down there, that's very interesting. So maybe Simcoe is behaving a little bit, coming out a bit more strongly when it goes with the Kveik yeast right enough. But yeah, as you come further forward from that, you can feel the beer just get a bit lighter, and you definitely get a bit of an orangey character out of this one, and that will be the Mandarina Bavaria. I think the Nelson Sauvin kind of takes a bit of a back seat in this. I mean, you do get a little bit of that light green grapey quality just behind the very front edge of the tongue. You do feel a little bit of that note from the Nelson Sauvin coming out there. But this beer, there is a bit more complexity to the tropical fruit side of things, but I think the passion fruit and that darker sour character from the passion fruit is a bit stronger in this one. So yeah, that is quite a nice thing. The more that you drink of it as well, you do get a wee bit of a kind of mangoey, peachy type flavour. There's almost a little bit of a pineapple there. The more and more that I kind of focus on that front third of my tongue, the more I can feel the juicier fruits coming out of it. But I think definitely towards the back of that front third of the tongue, darker passion fruit, a bit further forward, a bit of an oily orange, and then at the very kind of front edge of the tongue, it's more of a kind of light green grapey sort of thing actually. So I like how that how all of that goes together in this one. So yeah, the beer, I think this one, it does get a thumb up on me. As I said, I'm still not sure. This one, I don't think it beats the Dolphin Love, but it's a different style of beer, so it's, in some ways it's not fair to compare the two. It's more of an interesting kind of quirky one, this. I'm not sure if this is going to be one of their regular range, but yeah, if you want a big kind of farmhousey type IPA, then this is going to suit you. You mean, if you, it's like comparing the Alchemist Heady Topper to, you know, Congress Street from Trillium, or, you know, Green or Hazy or whatever from Treehouse. They're very different kind of beers actually. The Kveiks are almost the more farmhousey type New England IPAs or hazy IPAs these days. But I like how this one goes together. It has definitely grown on me the more that I've drunk, I've drunk of it. So I'd be curious to see what it's like on tap and just see if the yeasty notes come out to be a little bit sweeter, because that is one of the things that I find with the Kveik IPAs, is that the yeastiness isn't kind of sweet in the same way that you get with a Belgian beer, for example. So that's one of the things I find, that the yeastiness just quite kind of, it just adds thickness to the beer. It's in a sort of flat, doughy character actually. But I think they have done a nice, they've pulled off a nice beer with this, and it is definitely worth trying. But I think Dolphin Love does top this one for me. But as I say, that's a solid beer that I think will be very hard to beat. So yeah, try this one for yourself and just see what you think. I think that Mandarina Bavaria, Nelson Sauvin and Simcoe combination is a really interesting one. I'd be curious to see this in both a West Coast IPA or you know, a New England IPA actually. That would be an interesting experiment to try. But in terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say this beer is kind of mid-bodied. Yeah, carbonation's quite smooth in this one. There's a bit of wetness to it, but also a bit of oiliness, but mainly it's got a smooth backbone to it, this beer. In terms of hoppy bitterness, you know, it's around, oh, this one's got to be about 30 or 40 IBUs. It does have a bit of darkness to it. There's a bit of dankness. As I say, I wouldn't be surprised if there's Columbus in this one. And there's a wee bit of a darker earthiness as well. But you've got some nice kind of oily, fruity character to this one, which is nice. You get some of the darker tropical fruits, you get a wee bit of the more citrusy zestiness out of it as well, which balances it out quite nicely. The more you go into the aftertaste, you get more of the oranges, but yeah, nice little bit of bitterness, and it's quite a doughy kind of, it's not quite the smoothest of malt bases and yeasty characters that I've come across. It is quite doughy rather than anything else. So yeah, a really kind of quirky beer, this one, and it has been very interesting to try. So this one was the Exothermic, a 6% Kveik IPA from Northern Exposure Brewing Company in Ekerö, just to the southwest of Stockholm here in Sweden. Have a go at this one for yourself and see how you get on. If you want a more regular IPA though, do check out the Dolphin Love, because I think that one is really, really very nice. And you will see me review the Crossing Boundaries or Crossing Borders, I think it's Crossing Boundaries. You will see me reviewing that at some point over the next, you know, month, 6 weeks or something like this. But yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. As always, please let me know your own thoughts on this one in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Northern Exposure Brewing Company, and we will definitely be returning to these guys at some point soon. Check out my social media, and I will catch you guys very soon. Slanja, Skull, cheers. Make sure you check out this one, the Exothermic Kveik IPA, 6% ABV from Northern Exposure Brewing Company in Ekerö, Stockholm, Sweden. Skull.